text. I do religion in a way that most people do not. I do religion. I do your religion. I do your religion. And I do my religion as an historian. First, doing religion as a historian is very different. It's a very different experience than how most of us do religion. And it produces very different outcomes. When religion becomes an intellectual experience, you're compelled to do religion differently. Religion done intellectually is very different from religion done non-intellectually. For most of us, religion is a purely emotional, you would want to call it spiritual, but let's call it what it is. Religion is an emotional experience. And most of us are perfectly content with that. That is fine. I don't do religion that way, and that fact will likely come out in my presentation today. So I'm putting that out there as a heads up. I know where I'm at. I'm in North Carolina. Durham, North Carolina. Not only a very red state, but a very Bible-Belt state. And I can't imagine a better place to be than to discuss this subject of God's black prophets, which was selected for me. So before I proceed, I would like to thank Brother Cimarron, Brother Oak Rock, Brother Student Minister Amon. I have been in Durham before. I presented at Duke University. But I wasn't able to experience Durham while I was here. It was totally academic. Brother Cimarron and Brother Oprah blessed me with an educational tour of Durham. And Durham is a great city. I share Brother Cimarron's desire for Durham to be that intellectual black hub again. I came up spiritually and intellectually in Atlanta, Georgia, when Atlanta was an intellectual hub. But booty videos took over Atlanta. And so Atlanta is no longer an intellectual hub, hasn't been for a long time. We, like you, are attempting to jumpstart Atlanta intellectually again, bring these intellectual centers back to Black America. It's very disheartening to hear that all of Durham's bookstores, black bookstores, are closed. See, man is God. Man realizes his and her godhood through reading. Again, that's not my subject. But those who work to destroy black bookstores across America, they know what they are doing, even if we do not. So, God's black prophets. Can you see this, family? God's black prophets. It's a beautiful flyer. the deliberate attempt to suppress evidence of black biblical and Quranic figures. Wonderful subject. Some may presume that the discussion of the blackness or otherwise of the prophets is an inappropriate subject. You may believe that it is irrelevant what color the prophets were. To assume the color of the prophets is totally irrelevant. You lend credence to those mainly atheists, hyper-cynical atheists, who would like to believe and like to convince you that none of the prophets physically existed. You know, those who say Jesus never existed.
That's right.
And there are those who are adamant. Many of them today are our teachers in the black intellectual community, the black consciousness community. The Afro, in fact, today in 2012, a staple of Afrocentricity is the claim that none of the religious figures existed. So Walter Williams, Ray Hagan, Dr. Ray Hagan, and others would like us to believe that Jesus is a myth, that there was never such a person who walked the earth. They would like us to believe that Muhammad never existed, that Moses never existed. Well, if they never existed, then you are right. This subject is a moot point. But if they did walk this earth, if they were humans that actually lived, then it behooves us who look to them to have accurate information about them. It ill serves us if they were living human beings. If they were living human beings, then it's imperative that we get it right about them. If they didn't exist, then it don't matter whether they were white, black, or other. But if they did exist, it's imperative that we have correct information about them. Now, I can conceive of a world in which it's actually relevant the color or ethnicity of these historical figures. I can conceive of such a world, but that is not the world in which we live. We live in a world wherein the lie of white supremacy is hegemonic on this planet. The lie of white supremacy rules the earth and the lives of the people of the earth. 10 out of 11 of which are not white. We also live in a world where the falsehood of black inferiority is a lived and internalized reality for 10 of the 10 out of the 11 human beings on the earth. 1 out of 10 of this planet is white. I'm sorry, 1 out of 11 of this planet is white. 10 out of 11 are people of color. 10 out of 11 live under the tyranny of the lie of white supremacy and black inferiority. That's the world in which we live. So in this world, it is not only productive, it is critical when shapers of human society, movers of civilization, are not white, but for reasons have been made white. It's imperative that that be corrected. Because the process of making a non-white contributor to civilization white is to sustain and perpetuate the lie and hegemonic order of white supremacy and black inferiority. It is never purely academic. It's power politics. The whiteness or the blackness of the prophets is not just academic. It's power politics on a global scale. Being that that's the case, if the prophets were white, in a perfect world, and in my world, which isn't perfect, but yet and still, in my world, it's the same. If the prophets are white, they are no less worthy of the respect that men and women of God deserve. As a matter of record, Zoroaster was Zarathustra, the Persian prophet, or the prophet from ancient Persia. Our brother, Reverend Ishakamusha Barashango, of whom I have great respect and admiration, he said that Zoroaster was black. Well, no. I have no evidence of that. Zoroaster was an Aryan prophet, a very white prophet, but he did a very good work among his very hateful Aryan people in Persia. And the scripture that he brought to the world is in that Vesper, is a scripture that every believer in God and respecter of God's message should acquaint themselves with. Now, this raises a caution. It serves nobody's interest. It serves nobody's interest to take a wide paintbrush and just go slapping black paint on everything that's good and slapping white paint on everything that we think ain't good. Out of emotion, we may go there. But in the end, that doesn't serve the interest of the demise of the lie of white supremacy and black inferiority. So the Afrocentric community needs to check itself. I'm a proud member, participant in the Afrocentric community. But the community needs to check itself. It has lost checks and balances. It has stepped away from critical thinking and critical engagement of sources and has become a bona fide Catholic-like religion.